Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to my patch 8.9 rundown. Um, Usually at the beginning of every patch in the rundown, I talk about the state of the game and what I'd like to see changed. Currently, I feel like the power of the bot lane is too high, and mainly most of that comes from the fact that the support is too powerful. And so I think that during these changes, I'd like to see bot lane nerfs, but particularly I'd like to see like the ability for supports to mess up, because I think a lot of the current situation is that supports can't mess up. A lot of it is point and click abilities that last and have no counterplay. Stuff like shielding is really hard to deal with, because while DPS and assassins and like ADs can miss skill shots or not optimally do their role, I think as a support, once you hit a certain like level, you can't mess up as easily as other classes, which kind of accentuates the problem of bot lane being too good at the game. So I'd like for the game to be less focused around bot lane, which makes generally more possibilities for the macro side of the game played to exist. And secondly, I'd like to see more variety in picks. I think that there are some dominant picks in specific lanes, but as usual, I'd love to see any kind of buffs to weaker champions. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Welcome to patch 8.9. We're looking at mages, mana, and spellcasts. Over time, wave clear champions slowly edge out all other mid lane champions in mid lane to the detriment of overall player diversity. Basically, it's become too easy to spam your spells and waves, and the items which give you mana diesel are just the best choices. We're updating the core item. Cool. With game pacing over the next few patches, we want to make sure that there are fewer games that feel like they're lost but just won't end for a while. The first step is looking at objectives. We're making Baron more accessible when you're ahead, but also more contestable in closer games. That's such a... what does that mean? We're also upping the strength of Rift Herald when teams are able to safely shepherd it, but also increasing the strength of opposing players' teams to kill it when they see an opening. Okay, finally we're reworking Unsealed Spellbook. The old model meant you get a flash more, and we're trying to create a keystone that really sells the fantasy games and play around with the whole spellbook, not just 2 summoner spells. So I'll get out there and clear some waves. Bash Rift Herald, yeah. Okay, cool. Let's keep reading. Mage changes. Mages pretty much have 2 staple mana states: pre-mana purchase and post-mana purchase. During the first trip to lane, mages have to be very careful about the spells they cast, or risk going being stuck in lane for a while with little or no mana. Once they back to acquired the laning item, many mages feel that they could spam spells almost mindlessly, especially with blue buff. Correct. We're making a lot of changes to base mana regen, mana sustain, yada. One attention to be paid to mana, pumping a little bit more power into the core items so they do land a spell pack more punch. Okay. So I completely agree with the idea that right now it's really easy to dirty farm, which means you essentially just both the laners just spam spells on the wave, they clear it, and they go off to do whatever. You know, maybe one mage spams it faster or from longer range, and they get to roam first. But I think that non-interaction is a big problem in League of Legends, and a lot of it comes from, especially the mid lane, comes from the fact that wave clear champions are so easily accessible and are too good at what they do. The resource thing is a really interesting thing to bring up, because I've always felt that has always been the case throughout this game. So usually the champions that are most gated by mana aren't the mid lane mages, which doesn't make much sense from my perspective, because I think that from my perspective, mages should be the ones using the mana the most. The role that's actually most gated by mana regen has always been the AD role. Without the purchase of Essence Reaver, it feels like ADs are always strapped for mana and have to be the most conscious of mana efficiency, which I think that is like not the correct role to be caring about mana. Like, they're the role that should be caring about like hitting shit with their auto attacks. Instead, the fact that they have to be the most mana like kind of conscious role seems extremely backwards to me, and has always been kind of a really weird problem that I've had with the game. Let's just keep going. Let's see what they've done. I've addressed a lot of these problems and concerns prior in another video, and the things that I mainly think about this are that I agree with a lot of the concepts and the idea of identifying the problem and figuring out like what they need to do is correct on Riot's side of things. I think both for mage changes and potential other changes that I've seen them want to do, like for instance the jungle changes. However, the execution is what I'm scared of, because it is really difficult to change big things in this game. And this is a good example of something that's been around for a while, and Riot's kind of built their game around being able to use their abilities a lot. And you could just look at the amount of CDR that's been built into the game since the start of season 2. Before, I used to be able to figure out like, okay, what's the perfect build to get me this much CDR? I have to run exactly 10% in runes, 15, maybe 20% scaling in runes to get these things. But right now, it's like, well, they're just gonna give me CDR. Like, there's CDR on every item because Riot's stance on this, or the implication of their stance, is the idea that people have more fun when they're able to use their abilities more often. And there's been good and bad that's been associated with the fact that there's been so much CDR like built into the game. And I think that alongside that facet is also been people have more fun being able to use their abilities more often, which means that like their resource can't gate their ability to do that, especially even with this new CDR. And so I think this is a really interesting kind of different stance they've taken. And I think this has kind of been a problem that's been in the game for a while that I wasn't sure if they'd ever address. So anyways, let's just keep going. Doran's Ring no longer gives a base mana regen or mana regen a kill. Now gives flat mana regen bonus damage versus minions. They're incentivizing using spells on waves because you get mana back, puts mages in a weird cycle when trading is generally a worse choice than simply wave clearing. The new Doran's Ring will help mages feel a lot better about CLCing without spells, allow them more opportunities to trade directly with their lane opponent. For me in mid lane, I never thought that Doran's Ring was a thing that made me want to wave clear better. The way I thought of Doran's Ring was the idea that it promotes, or I should say, it encourages better last hitting. And so there'll be situations where if you don't last hit well, Doran's Ring won't give you much value back. But that's never been for me a thing that I choose wave clear over interacting with the other player. Mainly if that happens, it's just because I have a ton of mana. I don't need to interact with the other player, so I can just skip him. Or I need to not interact with the other player because he will beat me up. So I have to kill the wave first and then run away. I've never thought about it this way. But I've thought about it this way. No opinion on this change at all. I think it's whatever. This is really interesting. The mana punch, 5 additional on-hit damage versus minions. Cool. Sometimes I've struggled to be able to hit minions in the past, especially with champions that require 2 auto attacks to kill melee minions at tower. And so I think this is nice. Last chapter, cost and power increased. Approaching last chapter somewhere near the end of the game means that your fewer procs during a level up, decreasing overall access to mana. This is not untrue. However, this inherently is interesting. When I first looked at this change, the first thing that came to mind was the fact that like they want everyone to be Victor. And if you don't know what Victor feels like, you should play Victor, because Victor has a hex core, a super important hex core upgrade buy. The very first one allows you to wave clear, but it costs 1250 gold. So the ability for you to get that on the first back, probably impossible. And that creates a lot of problems with people's enjoyment of the champion, especially in harder Victor matchups. Now take that idea where it's like, hey, you know, this is a really expensive buy. Expect that to every champion who wants to buy a Lost Chapter. So now instead of bringing Victor's problems and isolating them, they're bringing Victor's problems to everyone. And so that's what kind of scares me, because when you're pushing it this way, and it's a little bit more like easily digestible, because I see this similarly to like the it's not as bad as the Victor Hex X upgrade or the BF sword that used to be 1600 gold and got pushed to 1300, because you can buy component pieces at 435, at 350, at 435, so that you're able to get this over the course of what looks like 2 backs. However, it's a little bit scary because I guess it just delays your ability to wave clear, which is exactly what they wanted. I just think that this is a lot of gold to get, a lot of gold to get for a lot of mid laners who will definitely be like, it might have been a possibility for you to obtain this in one buy, usually not. Now in mid lane, it's going to be tough to get this on the second buy, I would say. So, I guess we'll see what happens. Tier of the Goddess, total mana increased, mana refund decreased, mana max mana increased, now increases mana by current percentage of mana. Yes, this two comprehensively solves mana problems. I 100% agree. They increased the cost to 850. Cool. Mana cost refund is 10%. Cool. And when you gain max mana, It preserves your current mana rather than granting you full max mana. Okay, so it makes it so you can't cast spells and gain like +4 mana on max and current every time. So generally this just decreases the ability for you to have mana available after buying tier, and it made it more expensive. It does exactly what they want. I'm agree with the fact that I think it solves mana problems too easily. Let me keep reading. GLP, all right, no one buys this item because it's complete garbage. So combined costs decreased. Okay, great. That's at some point, if they keep doing this, this item will be purchased. Slow duration increased, missile mana increased, missile speed increased. Whoa, what the heck? So it just got buffed all over. It buffed full second on slow, which is great. Got buffed by missile speed. Everything but this is like somewhat of a nerf, right? No, spread time is lowered too. This got buffed across the board. It got 4 buffs, 5 buffs in a row. That's crazy. Wow, they really want people to use this. I could see myself buying this item. It's getting closer and closer to the point where it's like, hey, this is starting to become like kind of reasonable as an item, especially the full second on the duration and the combined cost decreasing. That's very, very attractive for me. So keep your eyes on this, I would say, for sure. You know, in every other situation, they tell you the total cost, right, of GLP. Like even the number of the total cost. So it should be like 20. I guess, oh, the total cost is unchanged because the last chapter increased. Okay, so this is actually just a net whatever. It's so just a buff in 4 different ways. I don't think it's appealing enough. One more buff. One more buff would be what I need for me to consider buying it on champions that aren't specifically built for it. Maybe I might try this again on Swain, or maybe I might see Soul with this, but I think it'll need 1 more buff or 2, which kind of sucks because they're buffing it by a lot, but I'm still not interested. The most interesting buff is this, and this might single-handedly be like high enough incentive for me to at least experiment with it. Definitely, I will try this out with Diana when I can. Again, Phoenix Codex, ability power increased. Phoenix Codex is tuned up overall to match Lost Chapter. Okay, so they just buffed it by more than 10%, right? 30 to 35, that's about 20%? So it's like 18% buff. That's pretty good. Free 5 AP, take it. It might be a more attractive one item buy for people who need CDR or who need AP plus CDR. Shouldn't change too much, but interesting. Twin Shadows. We're concerned about combat items as give slows. If an item lets you start a fight, it's a bit concerning when they can also make you win that fight. That being said, it looks like we released Twin Shadows weak. Even by that standard, we're giving you more AP. Cool. I have not seen this much, and I always like the ability to have to balance out weaker items. I think this item is relatively weak at the moment. Cool. Seeker's Arm Guard. Total cost decreased. Reactive purchase for mages who need extra armor in rough matchups. With the loss of last chapter, we don't want Seeker's Arm Guards to take that much longer to purchase in these rough matchups. Okay, that's cool. I think that this makes it more incentivizing for people who play against like Talon or Zed or Jace to be able to buy one super cost efficient item and then sit on it for the rest of the game. Like you just want the armor AP. You don't necessarily need the Zanyas. And so I might have more builds that have like this Seekers in the build, but finish up Zanyas like 2nd, 3rd, or 4th item. Okay, cool. Spellbinder. Okay, let me talk about this item right now. It sucks because the people who want to use this item are burst champions, because the item gives you an active that increases an amount of AP, and it gives you movement speed. So you essentially want it on burst oriented champions. Burst-oriented champions are pretty much assassins. And so if you're an assassin, you can't charge Spellbinder because usually the assassin can't be mid lane split pushing or wave clearing because they don't have wave clear. They're split pushing the side lane. So the ability to charge Spellbinder by yourself takes so long that you can't actually use this item in any kind of beneficial way more than maybe like once every 2 minutes. And you give up too much for that. And so that's why you don't see many people buy this right now, because even though it is actually a great item, For me right now on live, this is a 6-item purchase that's situational, and that sounds terrible. It's like a situational 6-item purchase. Maybe I replace boots for this on certain champions where I don't need the mobility. Sounds god awful, right? I could see myself purchasing this on Vlad, right? At 6 items, maybe at 5. So they definitely need the buff from live. So what do they give you? More AP, base AP. That's great, super good. Combined cost decreases. The total gold increases. Okay. It is a better item than before just because you don't need to rely on the active to make it efficient due to how much base AP it has. I will say though, and it gives you a lot more move speed, so it's definitely more incentivizing for champions like Vladimir who want to be able to get into the fight and stay into the backline. However, this is a very, 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 very situational item. Maybe might experiment with this a little bit more on Karthus now, but I don't see myself using this item any more than I do right now. And if you watch my stream, I haven't bought this item in 4 months. So let's keep going. Rylai's Crystal Scepter, AP increased. Okay, they think it's a little bit weak. I agree. Typically, I think that everyone takes the Leandries or the Oblivion Orb over Rylai's, and you get more value from the damage than you do from the actual utility of Rylai's, with the exception of Soul and maybe like 2 other champions. So slight buffs to this, no problem. Magi's glory stacks required for bonus move speed decreased. So it might be more beneficial. Magi's becomes less and less of a terrible buy because if you can get the 10 stacks with Dark Seal, upgrading to Magi's means you automatically get the benefit that you get for bonus move speed on the 10 stack, which I think is okay. It's cool because if you're doing that well in the game where let's play your Janna and no one can touch you, then you could just sit on the Dark Seal till you get 10 stacks and then make that, big purchase, the Magi's. Okay. Jared buff, that's funny. Luden's Echo, total mana cost decrease. What? Mana increase. Ludens is already on the weak side. Really? The number of ability powered items getting buffed this patch, it would no longer be cost competitive. It was the second best item after Seraphs, pretty much. So I don't necessarily think if I did choose between Seraphs, Ludens, and GLP, Seraphs has gotten nerfed more and more, and so Ludens is becoming more popular just naturally because of the fact that you lost 30 to 40 AP while building up the Seraphs, and that really hurt your wave clear / mid game team fighting. And so Ludens is becoming a more and more valuable item to purchase just because of that change. And before you kind of figured it out that it's changing over to Ludens, they're saying it's already on the weak side, which for me, rather than saying it's on the weak side, it's the second best mana item purchase. And this might push it to be definitively the best. So I'm a little bit scared on the idea. I think we'll see a lot more Ludens nowadays, especially with tier costing a little bit more expensive and Seraphs being losing a lot of AP while you're building it up. I definitely think that you'll start to see more Ludens. I'm just surprised that they didn't end up. It's not a big deal, to be honest, right? They buffed it 100 mana and they lowered the cost, but I'm just surprised that this was their stance on this. Turrets. Damage to turrets on. Hold up a sec. What do you think about AP mage items? I don't mind them shifting power away from tier and lost chapter. And I think especially what they did with tier was the correct thing to do. I am very much interested to see how this stuff will work out in game. I do think this will make the overall laning phase extend a little bit farther, where you can have more personal impact against the person you're playing with before it starts getting to the point where people just start wave clearing nonstop. So rather than that kind of break even mark being around level 9, maybe with this kind of stuff you'll break even around level 11, or I would say actually the break even point is probably around level 6 to 7, especially if they get blue buff. Now it might be like level 9 to 10 or to 11, which means you pushed it back a little bit, and I think that that's what mid laners want. So I am happy with the changes or the kind of pushed into making for these stuff or these things. I'm a little bit worried about the gold cost, but we'll see how it feels while I'm playing it. Turrets. Damage to turrets on basic attacks from mobility power. Increase the converted to magic damage. Taking turrets is an important mechanic of the game. Mages often get left out of this game. Yes, okay. Currently, champions that build more AP than attack damage get some percentage of their AP ratio as additional magic damage whenever they attack tower. We're upping that ratio and converting their whole attack damage to magic damage, not just the bonus damage. So, what does this mean? Mages will just take turrets faster, and champions APs will already take towers really fast. So, champions like Diana will even get even bigger bonuses from this, because they get a lot more attacks in, obviously. AP Nunu, as a side note, actually gets buffed a lot by this. But forget I said that. Let's keep going. Champions, 25 mages have had more mana regen and base mana regen, but less mana growth. 5 other mages have more mana regen. We're decreasing mana regen on champions most affected by changes to Doran's Ring and Lost Chapter. Mages are also getting changes to their mana pool and their mana growth. Overall, they'll be up a little bit of mana, starting mana regen, but down but mana per level. Okay. I want to know the champions that got buffed. 5 have more mana regen. Why would you give champions more mana regen? Okay, so I'm looking at mana growth that goes smaller to bigger. Wow. We're only looking for 5, so just looking. What? Is it the second list? These champions were also affected by Doran's Ring, then don't tend to purchase any mana. So we're adjusting the mana regen. Is it this list? Okay, it's this list. Okay, my bad. Wow, that's dangerous. So they're buffing Diana. So these are just straight buffs to the current state of the champion, right? Except for on level 1. I don't like that they're buffing Morgana, especially by what it seems to be some insane mana regen value. Why is she getting 3.5, which is more than anyone else on this list? She's not, especially because she's seen so much more as a support than a mid laner. This is the only champion I actually am like a little bit confused about why they're doing this too. And especially because Morgana is already such a powerful support right now, especially in solo queue and in competitive. Morgana is actually like stopping a lot of specific champions from being able to be good. I would say she denies aggressive play really well. So the stuff I'm okay with is champions like, Kayle, Teemo. I would say Diana, Gallia are okay, because especially Kayle, Teemo are very weak champions overall. Extra mana regen, sure, no problem, dude. You got it. But this one kind of confusing, especially because it seems like they pushed her mana regen to the point where she is now the outside of Zyra. Holy shit, who got 5? What the fuck? She got 5 mana regen extra? That's literally the equivalent of almost half of people's entire pool. Okay, aside from Zyra, who got 5, she got the second highest. I guess be on the lookout for Zyra and Morgana, for sure, because these two champions, especially in the support role, might be in a lot happier of a place right now. Really, really interested in these two. Okay, keep going. Mumu, Q cost decreased. I think Mumu, yeah. I don't even need to read this, because I think that one of the biggest things about Mumu is the fact that he is very much gated by mana. And so if he is clearing his jungle and he's too low mana to be able to make a gank, that's a humongous problem. So any kind of mana buffs, especially, look at these. 80 to 50, 120 to 70. They essentially go 30 to 50 mana off on Qs, and especially if you're maxing Q second, with enough CDR, sometimes you get two Qs off of the team fight. You're saving 100 mana. That's actually really good. I actually think nothing but great stuff here. Really, really nice buff. And this isn't going to break the game. It just makes Amumu more accessible to play. Caitlyn, this champion... Nerf this champion. So that the percentage increase over damage Oh, passive can no longer crit. Wow. Alright, so they're making it so that she can't headshot non-champions to sustain from lifesteal as much as she could before. Pretty much, that's what it's saying. It might do a little bit less to champions as well. Cool. Any type of power they're looking to nerf Caitlyn, I'm all for, because I think right now, if Caitlyn's too strong, she tends to crowd out any other ADs possible due to her range and great crit scaling. This seems like a really small nerf too. Dr. Mundo, our healing increased. Needs a bit more overall durability so he goes where he pleases. So they buffed it. Oh, wow. Wait, that's a lot. Wait a sec. So Mundo is balanced around the idea that people can get really early grievous wounds in the game. That's just how he's balanced. And so he's had a really difficult time to perform in situations where people can buy executioners calling 800 gold. I think Riot now went full circle and was just like, you know what? We acknowledge that everyone can buy this against Mundo, and they're going to. But we will push Mundo in the place where even if the entire other team has grievous wounds, he doesn't care. At 100% maximum health, 50% reduction puts you 10% under the nerf version before this patch, which is crazy. Like, that's such a big buff. I like it. I think Mundo sucks right now, and a lot of unless he gets super far ahead, and even if he does, his best way of asserting his pressure is by running at you fast. And he doesn't have hard CC. He runs at you fast and throws cleavers at you. That's it. And I think that he's very easy to counter because that's his kind of main form of impact in the game. This will kind of make him better at doing that. A lot better at doing that. I like it. They buff weak champions. This Amumu, I like it. I like it. Garen, Q base damage increased at later ranks. W resistance is increased. Compared to similar juggernauts, Garen is underwhelming. No shit, this champ sucks. His form of like addressing other champions is running at you quickly. Like similar to Mundo, but he doesn't have the 9,000 health pool that Mundo typically has plus regen. So they're making him do a lot more damage, and they're making it's 40 more with Q max. That's pretty good actually, especially because it has a decent AD ratio if I remember correctly as well, and you get 10 more max resistance from Courage. I'm not saying Garen's gonna be a great champion, but I think that these help him definitely quite a bit. Good stuff. Buffing weaker champions, just great in my book. Aurelia, passive now refreshes its duration when attacking large monsters. She can jungle now? What? Okay. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I don't even know my general thoughts on the fact that they're letting Aurelia jungle more. I think the idea of... I guess I'm okay with it as long as... it's not oppressive. I don't necessarily know if it will be. I guess mixed thoughts on this. Ivern, Q passive, health decrease, cool. Passive maturation time decrease at later ranks. Q missile width increased. Okay, they take 2.5% off of his passive cost early. They do 30. It's at 1 second at later ranks. That's crazy. Okay, this smooths out his late game. That's nice, and the width increase is nice too. These are nice buffs. I don't think he's gonna get played. Still, this is not enough. I think that he's still, because he's such a unique jungler, if he's strong, his form of counter jungling is probably one of the most frustrating to play against, because he runs into your jungle, bam, smite, he like 2 seconds in the bush, smite steals your red buff, runs out, and you can't stop him. That's kind of what makes Ivern and champions like Nunu very oppressive when they're very strong. I'd say these are very minor buffs, but minor buffs are kind of what Riot should do on champions like Ivern, because if he's overbuffed, it's terrible for the state of the game and the state of the jungle in general. So minor buffs, good, great. Will you see a lot of them? Probably not still. Kai'Sa, this champ's OP. Nerf this champ. Dialing back Kai'Sa's late game scaling a bit so she doesn't carry quite so hard, especially the interaction of her abilities with certain items primarily healing from spell damage. Okay. Evolved Q is 2 less missiles and are now flagged as AoE in all cases, which means Death Stance in particular is a lot worse with a Cathian Rain because they're flagged as AoE, and the supercharge duration is 4 seconds, and Rune's Hurricane no longer grants supercharge cooldown reduction. Wow, these are pretty big nerfs for her. Because you used to buy Hurricane to a lot of tank heavy, melee heavy matchups, which would let you be able to kite really, really easily with supercharge. But I'm all for this. Let's keep going. I like it. Good nerfs on the champion that I think is too good right now. Casting, Q magic damage shield increase. Casting currently needs a bit more to get through his laning phase. You think so? They didn't even buff the level 5. They only buffed the level 1 through level 5. Sure. I mean, I'll take buffs. I think Caston's kind of not great, but I also think he's very much viable in the sense that he can counterpick a lot of the mages mid lane. Or, sorry, a lot of the mage assassins mid lane, as well as some of the mage picks like Azir, and to some extent Victor. And so I don't necessarily think Casson needs these buffs, but it's like nice. And in terms of relative impact, you're going to get the most out of this around level 2, 3, and 4, which is typically, I guess, Casson's hardest time to lane. Kennen, 5th hit W, bonus AD increase at... Wait, what are they trying to do? Kennen's one of those champions who have seen success with both AD and AP builds. At the moment, both of them are struggling. We're looking to add strength to both playstyles. Also, move some of Kennen's power around to ensure the two playstyles are somewhat different from one another. Okay. So they're making its 5th damage go 15 more. They're increasing the AD ratio to 100 bonus AD, which is quite powerful. They're decreasing the AP ratio value of it. They're decreasing the base, okay, and increasing the damage ratio of the active. No, they're increasing the AP ratio of the active. Jesus, okay. So, really good for AD. Really, really, really good. And slightly buffed for the AP version here, even if you get less on the 5th auto, mainly because your playstyle on AP is not going to be built around the 5th auto. It's going to be built around the burst damage from Surge. And essentially, they're giving you a decent buff, and they're knocking off some base damage for it. Lightning Rush. Strike more than twice. Gains attack speed for 4 seconds. Oh, that's nice. That's real nice. I just realized Lightning Rush is Kai'Sa E. But you can cast your W and Q. But it's Kai'Sa E. Sorry, that's completely tangent. Lightning Rush's defensive bonus stats are lost upon exiting Lightning Rush. Oh, so you used to max E because you got a lot of defensive stats on Lightning Rush. So now if you're exiting E, you need to be careful because you're losing those defensive buffs quite early. AD Kennen's going to be pretty good, I think. They didn't really buff AP Kennen that much, I think. It's really just an AD Kennen buff. It kind of scares me because I think of the two, AD Kennen is much worse to have in the game than AP Kennen. Because AD Kennen just became a split pushing champion that was essentially terrible to play against in the 1v1 setting. Like you would, if you were like a Riven or a Yasuo player or any kind of melee threat, it was essentially a electric Yordle form of Jace. And so I think that while they may want to buff both, I would personally like to see the AP variant be stronger or more accessible than the AD variant, because I think the AD variant is more oppressive to the entire cast. Just my thoughts on the matter. I think, okay, it's cool that they buffed him. Let's see how he looks AD. Leona, base W damage increased to... Yeah, I think Leona is very bad right now. She sees almost no play. A lot of it is because her pressure requires her to go in, and going in right now is very highly risky. And so returning some of the damage, cool. I like it. Lux, holy shit! All right, so they've been buffing Lux a little bit these past couple patches. I think they really want her to be a good champion. So Right now, they're buffing Q base damage increase, cooldown decrease. W now counts double on return, even if it hadn't hit an ally on the way out. E missile speed radius and mana decreased. E cooldown later ranks decreased. Okay, so let's just start looking at this. So bonus AD speed at level 1. She gets slightly higher attack speed early, worse late. Health growth a little bit weaker, doesn't super matter. Base damage goes from 70, and the cooldown starts at 10, and the mana cost stops at 4. So really, really nice buffs overall on this. Cooldown, and the biggest thing to think about this is probably better for support Lux as well. Because since the cooldown is static, support Lux can then look to prioritize going 1 point into Q and then going E and W. One of the biggest problems of Lux is that she's so level dependent as a champion that you need points in every ability to feel powerful because she's constricted so much by her cooldown per level on all her abilities. But I think this is like a large support Lux buff because you only need 1 point to this and can still get a lot of good utility off the other 2 abilities. Cool. Keep going. I mean, this also buffs normal Lux as well. But I'm just saying, generally, this is much better at early ranks, and from what it looks like, makes the Q not level dependent, which is what supports want, since they get levels the slowest in the game. W Prismatic Barrier. 200% of Lux shields is ally on the way back, so it's always 200%. She is rooted for the cast time. I guess it's cool. Makes it better individually. All right. Buff. I don't think this will matter that much, but it's a buff, right? Lucent Singularity, Missile Speed. It might actually matter more than I thought, I think. In solo trades, if you open with W, auto, have the minions eat the buff and have it come back to eat the trade, could be more valuable than I initially think right now. Missile Speed, decrease radius, decrease cooldown, or mana cost decrease, great, because this is such an expensive ability, and a cooldown decrease later. Okay, so I think this is actually the correct way to buff Lux. Because of the consistency that you could hit the E, made Lux such a difficult champion to buff because you had to buff around an ability that not only that pretty much had a consistent, guaranteed hit whenever it was up. And so it was like kind of can your champion do enough in the 10 seconds that E is on cooldown to deal with Lux? And usually the answer is always yes. But it didn't make her trading pattern less annoying to work with. I think by nerfing this, it allows them to buff the rest of her abilities quite easily. Yeah, this is nice. I'll definitely put in a couple games of Lux afterwards. I think she could use more buffs because I think she's relatively weak. I'm kind of interested to see where she goes. Rammus, W bonus armor increased. Wow. He gets 10 more flat armor. Armor also scales into his AD as well, so don't forget about that. Okay, well, this is quite a big buff for a champion. Actually, now that I think of it, haven't seen a lot of recently. So, good buffs for weak champions. I'm down. Poppy, base movements, there's so many changes. Base movement speed decreased, wow. W movement speed and resistance is decreased. Passive and E range increased. Snapcasts are now knocks up for a lower duration and no longer makes enemies what? Charge missile R speed increased. So making her more range on her W or passive. She gets lower movement speed on her W, lower resistances, and overall the trade-off is she gets higher range on her E, and her ulti is interesting because making enemies not untargetable during the knockup, it means that your teammates can hit them while they're in the knockup. So it might be better, especially during team fights, to just snapcast it to get free 1 second CC that they can take damage in. And the missile speed is going to be nice too. However, she lost a lot for this. Like she's actually for 50 range on her E, and this she lost 10% move speed, base move speed, and resistances. So she became a lot less tankier as a result. I don't necessarily know if that trade-off is worth it. And this is a buff nerf that I think will not shift Poppy's relative state in the current meta anywhere. I think that she didn't get a good enough trade-off for people to be more interested, aside from in situations where Poppy is already really good. So there's some champions like for instance Callista or LeBlanc where the W passive knocking back mobility spells makes her a valuable pick, and I think that she's still good in those situations. However, whether or not she's gonna be a top tier top lane tank, you're gonna need a lot more nerfs onto the OP meta tanks. Oh, and she's also decently good into Camille. But I don't necessarily think this makes her better into Camille. So I guess we'll see. Shyvana, E and R ability. What? Why would you care about the ability power ratio? WAP ratio removed. The relatively unexplored part of Shyvana's fantasy is the whole flying around breathing dragon thing. Sure. Removing some of her ability power ratios enable more people to try out this play pattern. No. That way, when players opt into this play style, no. She feels like a different dragon altogether, bombarding enemies with fireballs before descending onto the enemy team, not just the same old dragon wearing a magical hat. I think inherently this isn't a play. This is not something that can be helped by a play pattern difference. It's the fact that Shyvana herself is created boringly. If you wanted to make a situation where Shyvana is a more interesting champion, rework her. Maybe, you know, this is a situation where Luden's Shyvana jungle becomes better. I am a little bit kind of, if that even becomes the case, I just be like, I got a new jungler. All right, this is replacing Nini for me, I guess. But yeah, I'd be a little bit confused, to be honest. Like, I don't see a fantasy where I want to be bombarding enemies with dragons or with Shyvana. And the fantasy I do see is Shyvana getting reworked. So, into something that maybe can create a fire-breathing dragon kind of thing. And so, I'm indifferent on this change. Maybe it definitely encourages a more AP-oriented build. I guess we'll see how effective it is. I will say Shyvana E does a disgusting amount of damage right now, even with no AP. So with having AP value, I'm actually kind of interested to see how much damage it'll do. Sona, base AD increased by 3. Okay, power core damage increased. AB4, 5 damage low. Let's talk about what changes like this mean. Sona gets a lot of power cores over the course of the lane phase, and combining with base damage, attack damage should be laying down more chip damage and go for the kill. I will say 5 damage is important early levels. I agree with them because, like, again, it essentially adds 25% more damage, more than 25% more damage at level 1, right? But it just looks bad. I'm gonna be honest. It looks bad. It might not feel bad, but it looks bad. Cesuna's relatively weak spot, really easily abused champion right now. If you wanted to help her out, I don't know. I think she might be a champion that needs to have worse late game scaling to kind of make it so that her early and mid game are more secure. And so if Riot wants to make her more meta or buff her, they probably need to look toward that direction for Sona, because Sona is too good late game for them to be able to give her any kind of considerable buffs so that she's not, you know, cannon minion in a costume early. So, yeah. Will this let you see more Sona play a little bit, but I don't think it's going to do much. Syndra, Q transition bonus, now bonus damage to champions, not longer sphere duration. Getting a maximum sphere ulti off should feel like the Syndra player advanced her sphere as well and rewarded her with a big play. Her current passive sphere upgrade makes her getting those big play far too easy to pull off, with shifting bonus to increase the value of landing dark spheres instead. I like that, actually. I completely agree with this change. However, I think this might make it so that Syndra is actually too hard to play. I think Syndra is better than people give her credit for. But I thought that this helped out a lot in that regard. Currently, when it gets shifted to this, she's going to be a very difficult champion to play. Currently, I don't see much of her at all. So I would say that she, with this change, which needed to happen when she was already really OP, happened like a couple season too late. She could probably use a couple small buffs to get back in the limelight. It's a 15% damage increase to her ulti too. Huh. This actually might be a buff then. This was her old passive, right? Before they changed it. It is. If the case is that this also increases the damage. No, it is okay. I guess we'll see what happens. I'm not too big on Syndra right now in terms of like I've never played enough Syndra. I used to always play the assassin matchup into Syndra because that was the more fun matchup for me to play. So I don't necessarily know her current power level. I haven't seen much of her, and I don't necessarily know what these changes mean for her. I would imagine these are relatively. They're nerfs for players who are worse at Syndra. That's the obvious case. I don't know what that means in general though. So I would just say this is one of the few times where I would be like, I don't know. I imagine she's just harder to play. Talon. Fix a bug where his Q range is lower than expected. They're just bug fixing it. It's not even a buff, right? It might be a buff, but it's a bug fix where it should have already been this way. Warwick, base damage decreased. A lot of people complain about Warwick being too easy to play. I think Warwick is a very easy jungler to play. Probably the easiest jungler to play to be effective on. So what do? Q base damage decreased at later ranks. Attack damage decreased. Cool, they're making him a little bit weaker. But he'll be strong early, he'll be weaker later. Okay. I'm okay with this. I don't necessarily care too much about the power level of Warwick. Ziggs, E-base damage increase at later ranks. Use more oomph as the game goes on. He gets 40 more damage per thing. And as well as he is one of the best tower breakers in the game. So he got buffed off the additional tower taking capability. So, okay. Fix a bug where Rage Blade interacted with other bonus attack damage, granting more attack damage than necessary. Jhin, Infernal Drake, and Master Yi. Okay. Epic monsters. So this is the Jhin nerf. This is great. Baron Nashor damage decreased, base damage increased, corruption damage increased. Some team compositions, those without tanks, find Baron too threatening. Agreed. We're shifting Baron's damage to distribute more over the whole party and not just one target. This will make Baron is still contestable. We're upping its health, so it takes longer to bring down. With Baron requiring more time to kill and spreading its damage across the entire team, opposing players should have more time to contest and a bigger team fight advantage if they do. Okay. Wow, they're lowering it by a lot. But they're buffing the base health by so much. It's so difficult to sneak this at level 15, at minute 15. I think it's going to be very scary for you to dance Baron now, especially because the damage is split across the team a lot more. So having one tank and with Janna's shield can't just tank Baron indefinitely. I meant 20. You guys know what I mean. My bad. So I'm a little bit scared to start Baron now. If anything, right now, the game encourages you not to do coin flip Barons. And if anything, even more so now, it encourages you not to do that. And so it'll be more important for you to dodge the stupid Baron corruption attack. Okay. I don't necessarily know what I think about this. The way I think about Baron is that it should encourage people to fight around it more. But rather than doing that, it de-incentivizes people to sneak it or start it. So maybe the idea that Baron is too easy to kill is definitely true. But nowadays, I would never start Baron except for the turn, right? And generally, you never want to do the 50-50, and people will do that even less with this. So doesn't this discourage forcing Baron to some extent? I don't necessarily know if I like that. I think that you can make an argument that the base health should be increased for sure. And maybe even the damage should be changed like the way it is. But I don't like objectives that force you to not fight it. Okay. Summon Rift Herald. Takes less time from charging. Takes less damage from charging. Does more damage to towers to charge. Wow. Does more damage. Takes more damage from eye poke. Rift Herald is a barrier in pre-20 minutes. A strong option for teams that are ahead to want to widen their lead. Cool. Will it be potentially multiple towers? That's crazy. I've gotten multiple towers like once with this champion. Damage to self is only 25% of current health. Damage to turrets on charge is 40% of current health. Wow, that's so much. Or wait. Do you see this? This means that if you save a Rift Herald at 10% health, you still at least guaranteed get 1500 damage on the Rift Herald on the next tower. That's really good. Excuse me. The eye damage is 40 max health though, so you kill it in 2 eyes. Okay, you have to defend Herald more. I think this encourages you less to use Herald as a way to get a one and done tower. Oh, Actually, maybe not. Maybe he just encourages you to use it more like this. I think it will be used for the current state, but it'll be more punishing if you don't defend against it. Okay. So this might encourage stuff like saving Rift Herald till right before Baron, you're about to do Baron, rifting bot lane, and then going to do Baron immediately once it gets to the enemy tower, because unattended Rift Herald will be more oppressive than it was before. Okay. Runes. Until Spellbook is now a completely different runestone. Can be swapped anywhere as long as you're out of the combat. Once you use a new summer spell and put it back to your old one, this solves your previous required too much preparation, locking you for too long. Swap one of your equipped summer spells to a new single-use summer spell. After using the single-use summer spell, your original summer spell will swap back in. So cooldown is 4 minutes. Your original continues cooling down the background while swapping out. You can now swap your so you want to swap and use shitty summoners and swap again. That way, how many summoner spells are in the game? What can I get in terms of? What can I get? How many can you use? 1, 2, and you can't swap off your original 2, right? So it'd be, you can't use clarity. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 minus. You can almost get 2 minutes off of the swap cooldown. So swap cooldown can go down to about 2 minutes. Okay. That's quite low. That's very, very low for you to be able to swap into something. All right. So I like this iteration of Spellbook a lot more, because this Spellbook encourages you to swap to different keystones when you can. I have no problem with the idea of doing that. I think that it's a control thing that makes the keystone more unique and fulfilled. I feel like it's a lot better than the current iteration where you just take it for the 15% CDR. Chrysalis bug fix. Adaptive damage no longer reverts to health within combat with enemy champions. This has been in the game forever and no one noticed because this is actually just OP. I think, by the way, Resolve should just be. I think Resolve is too good, way too good for laning, and it should be nerfed if not removed, or switched up to where you can't get bone plating plus Chrysalis. I don't know. I just think Resolve is such an issue when it comes to laning. Way too much. Usually never look at this. Fix a bug where Death Lotus cannot be cast if enemies in range cannot be seen. Now correctly ping her Death Lotus if no valid targets are nearby. These are actually kind of nice. This is nice. Falling Skins, Blood Moon Eve. Okay. She's attractive. Also attractive. My general feel about this patch. So I liked a lot of their buffs on weaker champions. I am very confused about Morgana and Zyra mana regen buffs. I think Zyra could use some help. Morgana definitely does not need any help at all. The AP damage to kill turrets faster is very interesting. It punishes you a lot. It punishes a little bit more for roaming in most situations. I think the nerf to Tier and Lost Chapter and Doran's Ring encourages what they're trying to do. I'm a little bit worried that I don't necessarily know if people are going to enjoy not being able to cast abilities because they're so used to it. But I think that it's probably a step in the right direction if they try to increase the effect of individual impact, especially onto mid lane. I like the Kai'Sa nerfs a lot. I don't care about any of these really. The Baron Nash is really interesting. I have to see it happen in game before I get better judgment of the thing. Okay, overall, pretty good patch. It didn't answer my biggest problem, which was AD carry and support situation. I think that I was told that AD carry changes are happening next patch. I'm a little bit worried because I heard AD carry changes and not support changes. So I would have preferred if support power changed in this patch. However, that doesn't seem to be the case. Bot lane is still going to be too strong, in my opinion, on this patch. And that's the entire meta is just going to be playing around bot lane. Whatever. Fair enough. That's been the state of the game since the year started. But nothing changed in this situation.